We are live. This is the early wedge. My name is Sia Nejad, and more importantly, I'm with Patrick McDonald, Jason Sobel, Mike McClure. We've got round 4 underway. This is the live betting show. This show is what you make of it in the chat. So let us know your thoughts and your questions. Mike McClure, how you doing today, my friend? Oh, Mike's on mute.
A muted response.
I'm muted. It is a muted response on a beautiful Sunday afternoon here. Look, I think the scoring's a little better than I was anticipating maybe on a final round so far. Keegan Bradley 6 under through 8. Final round, that's incredible, but I'm good, fired up. I think we're going to have a great finish here.
Keegan looks completely dialed in. I had him in my DFS lineups, but none of them have any real shot to win. I don't have him in my big showdown lineup today. Jason Sobel, you're catching some heat because apparently you're not a meteorologist.
Yeah, I'm going to start the show, guys, with a little warning for all you out there. Don't fuck with weather app Twitter. I went on my app yesterday. Look, I'm not a meteorologist. I'm looking at an app just like everybody else. I live 10 minutes away from Bay Hill, and the app shows me that it's going to be windy out there with gusts. I've got screenshots, boys. Sunday, 5 p.m. Winds 21 miles an hour, gusts 38 miles an hour. I don't know. I put it on Twitter. I felt like that could be interesting for today's final round. I am getting raked through the coals because I was wrong. I wasn't wrong. I read an app. The app told me that. Do you have a better weather app than me? Fine. You win, Twitter. You guys have better weather apps. It's not blowing. It's a little bit easier than we'd thought, but I do think the wind's going to come through just a little bit this afternoon. So sorry, Twitter. My bad.
Well, Jason, it was you and literally everybody else, including all the weather apps. I mean, dating back to earlier in the week, it looked like Sunday was going to be treacherous. Last night, it looked like Sunday was going to be treacherous. Now it does look like wind will go up a little bit in the afternoon, maybe gusts up to 20, but that's kind of what we're seeing as opposed to gusts in the 30s or the 35 mile per hour range. Patrick McDonald, people are interested in the chat about you and Stewart Cink getting together Pro-Am. How did it go for you, and how's it going for Stewart Cink?
Stewart Cink shot 59 on his own golf ball in the Pro-Am. It was a sight to behold. One of the funnest rounds I ever got to witness. It was net best ball. I contributed 1 hole, birdie on the last when you need it the most. But outside that, I really didn't even need to be there. But Stewart Cink, he's on his way to potentially winning this week. We got a nice winner from Sergio Garcia this morning, too. Didn't watch a lick of that tournament. Didn't matter. And hopefully we get one this afternoon as well.
The early wedges. Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say, if Cink wins this afternoon, you get a little mention in the winner's speech?
I think so, because I did give him a tip on the 13th fairway, which, I mean, is really doing something for him, clearly.
I mean, anything you touch right now, Patrick, is looking good. Last week, Joe Highsmith, 110-1. You hit Sergio this week. What was the number on Sergio, by the way?
25.
25-1, a lowly 25-1. Stewart Cink might win this Pro-Am. Everything is looking aces for Patrick McDonald. And Mike McClure, let's start with what's going on the course. And by the way, we're sweating Carl Phillips in Puerto Rico. Me and Jason Sobel, we had that pick at 70-1, 70-1 or 60-1, depending on where you got it on the
75.
early wedge betting show. 65, is that what you said?
75.
75, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got it at 70. He's currently tied for the lead. Actually, no, he's got Joseph Bramlett must have made a bogey. He's got a 1-shot lead, but there's like 12 people that are within 2 shots of Carl Phillips. So it's early there. Mike McClure, speaking of the weather not being an issue, you know, we didn't think it was going to be an issue early in the day. And so these tee times that have just gone off, we knew they would get some sort of good, good weather. It looks like most people get good weather, but the point is some guys are going off here. Ludwig, we saw early went off. He kind of bogeyed a couple, but Keegan Bradley going off. Are you expecting when these leaders come out in a few minutes, these guys to go off as well?
I mean, I'm certainly expecting -3, -4 rounds. I'm not expecting -6 that we're seeing out of Keegan. I think he'll probably come back a little bit, but what a stretch he just had from 6, 7, and 8. Just absolutely incredible. But you've seen guys like Ludwig come back a little bit after the hot start, to be expected. I do think it does get a little tougher. So leaders, I'm thinking like a good round for Morikawa here is probably 3 to 4 under still. We'll see what kind of noise they can make, but I think it plays tough, but definitely under par.
All right. And let me ask you, Patrick, anybody, I guess, that's on the course right now that you think can really threaten these leaders?
Well, you look at the leaderboard and it's kind of a bunch of guys who have the tendency to almost throw up over themselves,
Yeah.
at least in recent year. And so you see someone like Rory McIlroy make birdie on number one to inch a little bit closer. I think he's at 4 under now. And so that stretch that Mike alluded to from 3 through 6, the par 5, if he's able to get that and tack on, 2, maybe 3 more birdies, that's going to apply a lot of pressure on those guys. And I know Morikawa is the rightful favorite as the outright leader. I probably think he gets it done by day's end, but I think Rory has a chance to, make some noise here.
Before we get into more of as Eric Cole at +7 has an eagle putt. I love doing this show and then just like watching it live. I used to have sort of a delayed feed because I was watching through my iPad, but I've got the correct setup now, so I can watch it sort of real time here. Before we get into outrights, because I think that's a discussion that the chat is really interested in here. Jeff Stenberg, he likes a Henley +300 ticket. John is in here. Hef Sterling, Jables. We've got a lot of people in here that have a lot of questions. Hit the like button, ask your questions. But there are some matchups that haven't gone out. I just want to go over them real quick over here at BetMGM. If any of you like any, I'm just going to mention the matchups that haven't gone out on the course yet, or the players. It's Novak and Straka, excuse me. Novak is +120, Straka -150. Again, these are round 4 matchups. Michael Kim, Tony Finau. We've got Finau -125. Michael Kim +100. Corey Connors, Jason Day -110, -115. And Morikawa and Henley. Morikawa is a -145 favorite to Henley's +115. Mike, I'm going to start with you. And I don't want to force anything because maybe you like a different play. It's not a matchup, or maybe you don't like any plays right now. But any of those matchups, do they scream, hey, there might be some value on one of these?
There was one, it wasn't at BetMGM that you just mentioned there, but I did this morning play Jason Day even money over Tony Finau, who was land -120. I just simply thought it should have been a -110 on both sides on that one. So I'll be looking to back Jason Day a little bit. Don't love the matchup pairing there. I'm not laying -145 with Morikawa, despite crushing the field tee to green. Just in these conditions, I'm not laying a -145. Let's see. I don't mind Connors, but again, I don't trust Corey Connors in a final round really at all here. So
yeah,
I'm sitting out on it. But if you can find the Day versus Finau across the market, I do like Jason Day if he's still the slight underdog in that one.
So Connors and Day, Jason Sobel. I kind of like Day in that matchup, and we'll get to it in a second. I like Day as an outright at plus. What was it? +900, +1,000, wherever you can get it. But do you like any of these? I kind of like Day -115 over Connors, and I kind of like the plus number on Henley at +115 over Morikawa. Your thoughts?
Look, I always like playing plus numbers in matchups because anything can happen on, especially on a Sunday afternoon where this course is going to get a little crusty, get a little baked out. Michael Kim over Finau. Gun to the head, you had to play something of those last 4 pairings going out on the golf course. I think I could be talked into that at plus money. I could be down with that a little bit. Day or an outright, I like it. I'm kind of with Patrick. Like Colin Morikawa is the probable winner of this at the current number. I just looked; it was +105 at FanDuel. That doesn't get me excited whatsoever. So it's one of those like situations where, yeah, the guy that I think is going to win is too short for me to bet. So maybe wait and Morikawa starts with a bogey somewhere and Henley picks up a birdie and the number gets a little bit better and pick it up later.
I mean, Patrick, that's a really good point. Mike, go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, I knew you're asking outrights, but I saw it in the chat. I do like a little Rory top 5. It's not a huge number, +140, but the comment, I couldn't help but ignore it. It is literally a classic Rory backdoor top 5 finish. Like this is to a T what Rory does at these events. So I do like it quite a bit at +140.
All right. We've got Keegan Bradley through 8, 6 under. So certainly it looks
Make
like
7.
Is it 7? Did he just burn? Yeah, I'm looking at it now. 7 under through 9 is absolutely insane. So look for somebody, if not a couple of people, to get red hot here. Any of these matchups, Patrick, scream at you, because the ones I mentioned, I think we still have like 10 minutes on that first one, Novak versus Straka. So we have time to put these in.
Yeah, nothing really. I actually think, despite what Jason said, I think the number on Morikawa to win's pretty palatable, honestly. And so I'd avoid that last matchup between Henley and Morikawa. And if you're looking for plus money somewhere, I don't mind that outright price on Morikawa. But truth be told, I do have a Henley ticket that I'm waiting to throw away probably around hole number 11 if I'm lucky. But that Morikawa plus 105 is, I think, a solid look.
If you're a Sportsline member, you caught Henley, the Henley outright from Patrick McDonald. Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you didn't have it on the early wedge because that number crashed. You put it out at 65-1. By the time we got to the betting show Tuesday night, it was 40-1, correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not playing Russell Henley at 40-1 in this field, but early look, it was good. And if you read the article, kudos to you. And if you didn't, you probably saved yourself a little money.
Fair enough. Don't forget these Sportsline articles from guys like Patrick and Eric Cohen. They're out there early, kind of trying to get the best of the number. Yeah, like I said, I think I like there's a couple of these that I like. I think I like Jason Day over Corey Connors the best here at minus 115. All right, let's get back to the outrights, but I do want to address a couple of questions in the chat. Jeff Stenberg, Mike, I'm going to kick this one over to you because you like to do the round score stuff, and this one's certainly correlated. He says Jason Day over 3.5 birdies is even money. Are you playing that M squared?
At even money, I think it is okay to lean right there. I think the number is likely 4 with as many as 5 or 6. Just again, going a lot off of what I'm seeing on the golf course already and what I've seen from Jason Day the last few rounds. I definitely am not playing under. I guess would be the best way I could answer that. I would not play the under at minus 120, which is probably what the other side of that would be. So yes, lean over on the 3.5 at even money.
Jason, I got a question for you because Jason Day has really turned it on this tournament, and we've heard, and maybe you already knew this like well prior to this tournament. I didn't. What is it? Colin Swatton, his old swing coach, that he's back with him, and we're seeing that really translate really on the greens. But maybe it's just a confidence thing in general. When you're looking at this round 4 number for Jason Day, or just Jason Day today in general, do you factor stuff like that in? Have you seen stuff on the course where you're like, oh, okay, like I get this. This is a different Jason Day.
For me, it's more of a being long-term bullish on Jason moving forward than in the short term. In fact, in the short term, I would think there'd be some volatility. He's still working on some things. I don't know how much they're working together right now, but I think it's a great move in the long term. Colin Swatton was like a father figure to Jason Day for a very long time. Nobody knows his game as well as Colin does. Nobody knows him as well as Colin does. Not just his swing technically, but his mindset and what he likes to do on the golf course, how he likes to prepare and practice. So I think this is a slam dunk move for Jason. From all reports, they stayed with a pretty good relationship over the last few years. This was not a measure of Jason trying to, having to tuck his tail between his legs and crawl back to his old coach. But I think Colin's a very, very smart guy. I think that he's going to help Jason. Again, I do think it's more long-term than short-term. So at some point, Jason tends to play well mid to late summer. He tends to kind of gain momentum and gain a little steam later on. So you start looking at Open Championship at Royal Portrush, somewhere around there, the playoffs. I could see playing Jason, especially if that number stays around where it is in some of these big fields.
Let's talk about, go ahead, Mike.
I'd say Rory down to plus 110 off of that plus 140 for a top 5. Just absolutely perfect drive there. Wanted to get it in before it's minus 150 because that is where it's headed. Now we're even money.
Was it, Mike, was it because of the drive or because you said it?
Most likely because of the drive. I don't think we'll see. If it was, not on that. I didn't bet it yet, unfortunately. I just did at 110. But yes, now we're even money on Rory.
We're going to get to live outrights in a second, but this is a kind of a fun story from 2 hours ago. And I was joking when I said it, but Mike and I were on HQ at around 11:15 or 11:20 today. And the odds on Jason Day were plus 1,000 at the time. Like when I jumped on, it was plus 1,000 over at BetMGM, FanDuel, I believe. Long story short, Mike put out a matchup play, the one he mentioned earlier. I think, what was it? Jason Day versus Tony Finau, I think. And by the time it got to me for my outright call, which was like 3 minutes later, Jason Day's odds had dropped from plus 1,000 to plus 900. So again, I said it in jest that it probably didn't have anything to do with Mike, but if anybody could move a market, it is certainly Mike McClure. Okay, well, I do want to, speaking of, I want to get into some live outrights because that's what most people are asking about right now, and we will try to get to all of your questions. And don't forget, we're going to do a very short sort of look ahead to the players to get you set up for your research starting maybe tonight or tomorrow. But I got to address this from the Wednesday live show. Patrick, you missed that one. You were traveling or you were yucking it up with Stuart Sink and shooting 59s and all that stuff. But in that show, Tyler John Morrison, I'm going to read his comment first. He says, "Sia, am I still an idiot for running with Michael Kim in the RRG Rick Run Good one and done? I'll ask Rick that question as well after round 4 is done because I could still always get egg on my face. History has shown, LOL." So just to be very clear, Tyler, when you were in that live chat on Wednesday, the way you phrased the question was as follows: am I an idiot for playing Michael Kim in the RRG OAD? So you put that terminology in our head by phrasing the question like you did. And I will say, Rick did say, yes, you're an idiot. But Michael Kim is a stud. And we did talk about him on that show, how his metrics, if you took the name Michael, Patrick, I'm going to ask you this. If you took Michael Kim away from the metrics and you just didn't know whose name it was, would you not over the last, 4 or 5 months, or at least 3-4 months, think, hey, that's Colin Morikawa's profile?
Oh, Colin Morikawa, that's high praise. I think he really turned it on in the beginning of February. Right. He had a good fall, top 5 at the Shriners, finished well at the RSM Classic, but got off to kind of a bad start this year in the iron play, working with Sean Foley, just everything. And then he's working with Joe Mayo now around the green too. You saw the around the green game really move in the right direction. That's a big reason why. But I wouldn't quite put him up to Colin Morikawa's profile. I'd say he's playing like a top, 40, 50 player in the world at the moment, which is big for someone like Michael Kim. His OWGR, I think he's around 70th, so definitely outperforming that. But to Tyler's question on if he's an idiot, he's not an idiot if he finishes top 5 in this field, because you're getting a whole lot of money for Michael Kim and possibly his biggest paycheck of the season.
Yeah, fair enough.
I will say this about Michael Kim, and I'm not breaking any news here, but golf is a game of ebbs and flows at the highest level. And unless you're Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, or Xander Schauffele, you're not going to continue that high level of play for a long time. So you want to strike while the literal irons are hot. Michael Kim's been playing some really good golf. Why wait? If you like him and you want to take him somewhere, take him when he's playing well. Middle of the summer, who knows where his game is? I hope. I like Michael Kim a lot, and I hope he continues his really good play and turns himself into a top 20 player in the world, but I don't know that it's going to continue. So if you're going to play him at some point, play him now instead of later.
Totally fair. And for the record, I wasn't comparing the two in terms of talent. I'm just saying, sometimes you get a guy that is really striking it really well for a decent period of time, and you just still don't want to play him because you don't believe in it. At a certain point, we got to believe that Michael Kim has completely changed his game around. Maybe we're not at that point yet, to Jason's point, but he looks really, really good. Hopefully he continues it today because I played him in Showdown. All right, let's talk about some outrights. A lot of people want to know, hey, where are our leans? Mike McClure, I'm going to start with you. I don't know if we have the betting board that we can put up, Josh, but obviously we kind of know who's at the top of it. We talked about Colin Morikawa at around that plus 105 number. Then comes Henley, Connors, Jason Day, probably still at that plus 900 number. Bradley attacking, probably too little too late. Mike, anybody you'd put a live outright on right now?
It would be Morikawa and Day would be the two that I would be looking at playing. I thought what Patrick said was interesting. It's not often you get a guy like Morikawa leading a tournament where I'm actually showing a little bit of value on it. I have him at 51%, be minus 104 is what the price point should be. I know a lot of you don't think that plus 105, plus 110 to minus 104 is a big edge, but percentage wise, it's still a significant number when you're talking about a 3.5% edge on the guy who's actually currently leading the golf tournament and crushing the field tee to green. So I do think it is a good time to buy Colin Morikawa plus 105, plus 110 if you can find it. And then Day at 10 to 1. I thought the number should be 8.5 to 1 on Day.
Jason, before I get to you, I just think this comment's kind of funny. And Tyler fires back. He says, hey, it's all good fun. And absolutely. K-Kaz, I just think these two comments from K-Kaz juxtaposed with each other are just really funny. He says, be smart, straight bet Morikawa at plus 100, enjoy a stress-free Sunday. Keep in mind that's led with be smart. His very next comment is parlay Morikawa with March Madness futures if wanted for added value. Probably not the smart play, but either way, it's fun, and KCAS believes in Colin Morikawa. All right, well, Patrick, we know you like Colin Morikawa as a potential live outright. Jason, you addressed this a little bit, but talk to me about a live outright potential play.
Yeah, and again, I'm just trying to get a little greedy. I like Morikawa to win today. If I have to pick, he's my guy. I didn't love the number. Patrick and Mike have both sort of talked me into it a little bit. I can get behind plus 105 where he started the day. So, I'm trying to get greedy and wait for maybe a little bit of a mistake here and there. Or maybe one of the two guys, two of the three guys behind him can make a little move early and that number gets a little bigger. But, yeah, that's just being greedy. So, yeah, I don't mind it. If I'm playing one right now, I'm playing Morikawa.
Yeah, it's going to be Jason Day for me. I see BetMGM still has that good number of 10-1. He's only 3 shots back. And again, I just look at these three, in terms of Corey, Russell Henley, Colin Morikawa. And we kind of, Patrick, we kind of had this conversation last week about Russell Henley specifically, where you took umbrage when we were like, I don't think he can close. And he didn't, and he was very flat. So I don't know what's going to happen, but Jason Day at 10-1, he's 3 shots back. I don't think that's a lot here when you consider who's at the top. It's not Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy at the top here. With that said, I'm going to agree with Jason on, I get the value proposition on Colin Morikawa, but through 18 holes, the question you got to ask yourself from a live betting standpoint, and Mike, I'll just lob this back to you because you understand, I guess more than anybody, the variance just from a statistical standpoint that golf offers. Isn't it very likely that in the 2nd hole or the 9th hole or the 12th hole or the 5th hole, we actually get a better number on Colin Morikawa just because of the up and down nature of these 18 holes?
Yeah, definitely. Especially the way the front 9 is playing today. I certainly think that there is a situation where you could. The thing that I would caution against, though, is just Morikawa's leading because he's crushing the field tee to green this week by over a full stroke over anyone else. But yeah, I think it's very possible that you might catch a plus 150, plus 200. Obviously, if you're catching plus 200 or plus 300, it's no longer a better number. It's because he's fallen back quite a bit. But yeah, I think that if you're talking quote unquote better number, it would be a scenario where Morikawa doesn't birdie the first hole. Essentially, that's probably your best bet to buy on him there if you're looking for a different price.
Okay. I want to ask you, Patrick, I'm going to go to you on this one because John says Shane Lowry starts with a birdie. How about a live 40-1 play? Is that on an outright? Is that what he's suggesting? Because I can't imagine that happens. He's 5 under though. And he's, obviously T6, 1 under. He'd have to go real kind of Keegan Bradley style here. I guess it's possible.
Chop that number because I've got 60 on Lowry a couple places. So
yeah,
okay.
He just hit a dud of a chip. He has like 15 feet for par on 2.
Keegan, by the way, Keegan birdie on 10.
Wow,
this is like getting ridiculous now. Can I ask you, Patrick?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, if you had something important to say to follow up there,
no.
But if we're talking about, sorry, like sometimes you don't have anything important, so I'll just interrupt you. Posting a number, and I know conditions aren't going to get too brutal later, but are we talking about if Bradley stays this hot? I mean, if he somehow posts, 11 under is not going to get it done. Is there anybody you think can post a number that is going to be kind of an early clubhouse? Hey, maybe the conditions get bad and it holds up type thing.
Well, it is looking like Keegan Bradley. I think if he gets to 10 and forces Colin Morikawa to shoot even par or better to win this golf tournament, I think that applies a ton of pressure. Morikawa's been great. I think BetSports Golf tweeted out his strokes gain metrics through the rounds of the last couple seasons, and the final round is significantly worse than the first 3. And so just a little added more pressure could do a lot in this tournament. But I'm looking at Seb Straka, honestly. Lowry, I would love for him to come through. I already got some investment there, but he's just driving the ball so poorly at the moment. It was really bad off the tee yesterday in particular, and already missed the fairway on 1, got lucky hitting it in the fairway bunker where you can play out of in lieu of the rough. But Seb Straka is kind of the guy for me. Got in the brutal conditions on Thursday, has really turned it around since. And he's someone we know can go out there and fire a number. And so has a good look from 6 feet on number 1. Hopefully he brushes that in and he's off to the races.
All right. Jason Sobel, update on Phillips. He's now tied for the lead with Joseph Bramlett, which should be really no surprise. And he's finishing up the 5th hole. I don't know what he's done, but he's He's heading to a par 5, so that's kind of the good news because
that was a par 5. You just he's going to the par 5. Okay,
he's going to the par 5. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's good news in the sense that Bramlett and Van Wyck have just played the par 5. So we'll see what happens. He's going to have to birdie there, I think. Jason, in terms of posting a number, anybody that could scare these leaders here?
I mean, I'll go with Rory. I haven't seen his drive yet. It still shows him waiting to tee off on number 4. He's played the par 5s really well. We all know when Rory's winning golf tournaments, he obliterates the par 5 holes. If he pummels a drive down there, pick him up. He's 35-1 right now. And maybe he's the guy that posts the number. I just think at some point, Keegan was too far back. He's not shooting 60 out there, I don't think. And so at some point, he's going to take a step back. And I think Keegan's just a nice afterthought at the end of the day, finishes in a tie for 5th place or something like that. But I can't see Keegan making a serious run at this.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of hoping, even if unless you have a Colin ticket, if he could just have kind of a poor start, maybe him and Russell Henley, I think we've got something from a lot of guys that are in that sort of Keegan Lowry range that could at least threaten the top. Mike, when you're looking for somebody to post a number, do the conditions have to be, I know this is a tough course regardless, but do the conditions have to be a little tougher for you to be comfortable even really having that discussion? I mean, weather conditions, by the way.
Yeah, I would like it to be playing a little more difficult than it is. I think a poor round, the way Colin's playing right now, a poor round would be a -1, honestly. You're talking about 11, but I think that the more likely scenario though is Colin shoots a relatively conservative 3 under and probably wins this thing at 13.
Right on cue, by the way, Rory blows one left on 4.
Straka birdie on 1. He's at 5 under with Michael Kim, Shane Lowry. This is good. So I'm sorry, you said Rory blew the par putt?
No, his drive.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Left, sitting down in the rough.
Gotcha. Okay. I think this is going to get really, really interesting. Let me see if there's any more chat questions before we kind of transition. We're going to circle back to this tournament, but I do want to transition in a second to the players and get the thoughts from all 3 of you in terms of what you're looking for. Tom Sibley says, I have an outright on Henley. Should I hedge Morikawa in the matchup? Oh, that's an interesting question. So the thing is, Morikawa's like -140, as we discussed. Mike, I'm going to kick this back to you. Any thoughts on hedging via a matchup here? I don't love it.
No, I don't want to hedge via a matchup. I mean, you've got Jason Day's still there. Corey Connors is still right there. Straka's still definitely within range. I would not get into that, particularly when you're having to lay -145 with Colin to start hedging. Mm-hmm. You can revisit that question around maybe the 6th hole, but pre-round here, no, I would not do that.
This is an interesting question from Jeff. Over a half an eagle. Jason, I'm going to ask you this. He's finding some interesting markets here. Over a half an eagle in the Henley Morikawa group is +325. So obviously that means one of those 2 guys has to get at least 1 eagle. He says, are there spots today for someone to shred a big bird because I'm dying to fire this off? I mean, Jason, I don't hate the number.
I'm not going to lie. I've not studied the pin positions and how eagleable any of the par 5s are right now. I don't know. If you want to have some fun with it, sure. 2 of the shorter hitters near the top of the board right now, obviously they can still move it out there. Everybody can. If you're short these days, you're not playing in big boy tournaments. So they're certainly not short, but they're not the longest guys out there. So probably not, but I don't know. You want to take a chance at it and just root for an eagle all day for the final pairing? Go ahead. I don't care.
Patrick, any thoughts on that? I think Jason's point is pretty good. I don't know that these are the guys that I would be rooting for an eagle. Keegan just got an eagle about 30 minutes ago. So, I mean, it's in play. He's not the only eagle on the course. I'm trying to remember Xander actually putted. He drained a long putt for eagle earlier in the round. Would you flirt with a number like this at all?
No. I mean, for them, the best chance is on 16. And at that point, they might be gripping the club a little bit tighter coming down the stretch. So I don't know if I'm attacking for them to make an eagle.
Jeff Stenberg, I got to give him credit. He's a big fan of this early wedge franchise. He's always in the chat, along with a lot of you, Brad Merrill and Joseph Boza and David Talk. And even if you're kind of new to the show, thanks for being in here. But he'll always find an obscure bet. And I got to be honest, especially like during baseball season, because he goes to all sports. He'll find an obscure bet and it'll be like plus 425, and everybody thinks he's joking, and it'll hit, and we'll talk about it the next morning. So credit to him. All right, we'll get to more of your chat questions regarding this round and live outrights, things of that nature. And again, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed to this channel. But I do want to talk about the players. So let's maybe just at least set the table for the players right after this message from our partners.
Who's in? Who's out? Let the madness begin. The NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
All right, we're back on the early wedge. Let's turn the page to the players, to TPC Sawgrass, and just try to figure out what the keys to success here. We know Scottie Scheffler is going to be the returning champion like he was this week, of course, at Bay Hill. One thing, Patrick, that I think is interesting here, and maybe it's not interesting, but like some of these great players that have won here before, Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, you go down to like Webb Simpson. These are guys that had a lot of success winning and then also having really poor performances here as well. So I don't know how to sort of play into that volatility necessarily, but this does seem like the type of tournament where you could eject pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at those winners, they're mostly major champions too. Scheffler, Cam Smith, JT, Rory. I mean, you go back the last decade, and the only two that aren't are Siwoo Kim and Ricky Fowler, I believe. And so top quality players. And you mentioned the volatility. Just look at the finishing stretch there. Number 18 in particular, it's one of those holes where you miss left. It's not a drop in the fairway and you're hitting your third onto the green. It's a drop on the front tee box and you're hoping to get away with a bogey at best, probably a double bogey in all honesty. So it's a lot of those shots riddled around TPC Sawgrass. Unfortunately, it's dumping rain there right now, I believe, and more rain is in the forecast for tomorrow as well, which is a bit disappointing because a firm and fast golf course is always more fun to watch. So that might lend itself to easier conditions and might take away some of that volatility, but it's kind of just a well-rounded test and one that always produces down the stretch.
100%. Go ahead, Jason.
I've been previewing the Players Championship for more than 20 years now, which is ridiculous. And for all those 20 years, I've been saying, this is a tournament where we've had favorites, we've had long shots, Tiger Woods, Craig Perks. We've had veterans, we've had rookies like Siwoo Kim. We've had long hitters like Phil Mickelson. We've had short guys like Fred Funk. And anyone can win. It's the most equitable golf course out there. I have completely changed my tune on this. We've seen over the last half decade, Scotty's won twice, Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy. And what we've seen is the change. And maybe part of this is the change from May to March, and that the course plays a little softer and gives the guys who are longer hitters, high ball hitters, a better chance. But it's turned into basically a playground for the superstars and the most elite level players. So I don't know that we're ever going to see another Craig Perks, another Fred Funk go out there and win the Players Championship. Those days are long gone. And I think that you have to target, if not the very top of the board, at least somewhat near the top of the board for this big tournament coming up next week.
Jason, let me follow up with you there too, because if we're looking at the top of the board, that certainly makes sense. I think that's a lot of what we were doing at the API as well. Is there a certain skill set you're looking for at the Players?
It's ball striking. I mean, it's iron play, which we're going to say about 70-80% of the tournaments during the year. I get sick of saying the same thing week in, week out, but man, if you're a really good iron player, you should be able to put yourself in good position at this tournament. But really, that's what it's all about at Sawgrass. It's about positioning your ball not only in the right spot, but not missing in the wrong spots, which so many players tend to do. And so I've got a list here that I started at the beginning of the week. At the top of the list is Colin Morikawa. It's going to look like I'm chasing a favorite now, and I'm sure the number is going to get shorter on Colin, especially if he wins today. But even just contending, it's going to get shorter. But he's a guy that's been knocking on the door. The ball striking's been so good over the last 6 to 12 months, even going back 18 months. This week is going to now be 16 of his last 17 tournaments. Strokes gained positive with the approach, and I think Colin's he's due for another good one next week. We saw Scotty go back-to-back last year at Bay Hill and Sawgrass, and even if Colin wins today, I think he's going to be near the top of my list next week.
Mike McClure, to reduce this to something that kind of makes it easy for people to imagine like, okay, this is how I want to look at the metrics and sort of attack my course breakdown. One thing that Jason said, or a couple things Jason said that I thought were pretty appropriate, he used the word positional. And he used, obviously, the word approach, which, again, we talk about at a lot of tournaments. But I think approach play, I think, being accurate, positional, it's a positional course in terms of just kind of like getting yourself in the right spot on the fairway off the tee. Is that what you're looking for? And by the way, I know you're also kind of a Florida course form guy as well. Are you looking at Florida course form or perhaps TPC Sawgrass form? Like what's in the blend of your course breakdown?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be approach play, as Jason said. I do not really think that you need to be long off the tee at all. I think it is more just positionally. So I think I'll downgrade a little bit of distance in terms of the importance. Just being accurate, hitting fairways, hitting greens in regulation, certainly going to be something I value. And it's likely going to be the cream of the crop again at the top. Colin Morikawa is someone that I do believe will be extremely streaky. As Jason kind of said earlier, you said it was about Kim, but when the irons are hot, that's when I want to play him. If Colin goes out there and has another good round today, he's going to be popular and the number's probably going to move quite a bit, but I will be playing him again because I think Colin is the kind of player that can definitely rattle off 3 or 4 good weeks in a row here like this. And I like that it's back-to-back weeks. So like him, I'm a sucker for JT. I'm going to play Justin Thomas again. I'm almost certain of it at that one. Let's see. Other guys that are – yes, to answer your question, I do care about some history, some course history around there. Outside of maybe Victor Hovland. He had a couple good years in a row, didn't play well last year there. Certainly didn't play well this week. As much as I loved him, as much money as I lost on him this week, I will not be going back to Victor next week. So go ahead and get your Victor tickets in now.
Real quick point, Mike. I've been to a lot of pro-ams hanging out on Wednesday. I was on 17 for about 4 hours on Wednesday morning, early Wednesday afternoon. I'm not sure I've ever seen a player as frustrated as Victor Hovland was on Wednesday at Bay Hill. He hit 2 in the water. Granted, the wind was blowing that day and it was starting to rain out and it was just kind of miserable out there, but hit 2 in the water, slammed his club down, took a long, lonely walk by himself, didn't even wait for his pro-am team to tee off. I then did my show for 3 hours on radio right next to the range. He was out there the entire 3 hours. When I left, he was still out there. He's working on a lot of things right now. He is a fade for me for a while until he shows us otherwise.
Very, very interesting stuff. We got an interesting comment. Patrick, I'm going to go to you on this one. It's a very generic DFS question because I know pricing isn't quite out yet. But Joseph Boza says tomorrow at 7 p.m. on Golf Channel, they kick off the live coverage for I guess for the players is what he's talking about. That goes against our 7 o'clock DFS show. I mean, Golf Channel, you gotta kick it back an hour. But with all of that said, of course, I say that in jest, but from a DFS standpoint, and I led with you with volatility. So I just have a question when it comes to DFS. A lot of people and it makes sense, right? Just like this week, I wanted to jam in Scotty Scheffler or Ludwig or maybe even Rory McIlroy. From a DFS standpoint, because of the volatility, do you think you'd be looking to maybe play a more balanced approach and just play on that volatility and the fact that Scotty and Rory and some of these guys at the top of the DFS board are maybe going to kind of, have potential bad rounds here and there?
I think I do more stars and scrubs, honestly. I think there's an opportunity there near the bottom of the board. I know Jason said there's major champions and all the big guys are playing their best golf at the Players recently, but you look back a couple of years, like Lahiri almost won this golf tournament. Jim Furyk almost won it against Rory McIlroy a few years before that. Lee Westwood was in the mix when Justin Thomas won. So there's opportunity down the board. You have guys who are probably going to be popular. Someone like a Doug Gim, I would think. Someone like a Denny McCarthy who have good history and are hitting the ball well and don't necessarily have the length to contend at most places on the PGA Tour, but certainly have the accuracy to contend at TPC Sawgrass. So I'd probably go build at the top and then go towards the bottom.
All right, Jason, I know Mike McClure went through a couple of outrights or a couple of names that he has his eye on. Any names that you have your eye on? It's early, it's Sunday, but any names that kind of pop to the top of your head here?
Yeah, I haven't fully gone through all the research yet. Morikawa and JT were both on my list as well, so I'm right there in line with Mike. I'm basically going to look at the guys who are hitting the ball really well. Tommy Fleetwood leads an approach, and we all know I had Tommy Fleetwood this week, which makes a whole lot of sense that he'd go out and win next week instead if I don't jump on him. So I'd get those Tommy tickets for next week when I don't have them. Other guys who have been hitting it well this year, I know he played really poorly this week, but I'm still a big Maverick McNeely fan. I don't know that Florida golf is necessarily his cup of tea, but I think Mav McNeely can go out there and have a really good showing next week. Hideki, remember, we're 5 years past the COVID year when Hideki was first-round leader, and then we got wiped away the next day on Friday morning when the world changed. Hideki Matsuyama could be a play for me as well.
I'm glad you said that because, when I'm looking down the board, which I tend to try to do, Decky was in that 28 to 30 to 1 range, which I thought was a pretty good number. And by the way, if he's got the right tee time, I'll probably hit him for a first round leader and see if he can enjoy some of that success that you were referring to before the world changed. Wyndham Clark, I also thought, because his number was like 55 to 1. I actually think it was a lot longer. They had a couple good rounds and it's been chopped down to 55 to 1. What was he, second here? T2 here last year. Does appear that he's found his game for the most part. I think that's a really long number on a guy that is kind of a proven winner. We know can close. Certainly didn't close at the API necessarily, but we know can close. Patrick, any names that come to mind for you from an outright standpoint?
I'm hoping Rory McIlroy has a great day today. I'm hoping Scotty Scheffler has a great day today. Hoping Colin Morikawa has a great day today. Because I'm hoping Xander Schauffele's number continues to drift. I know it wasn't pretty at various points throughout this week. The short game wasn't great, had a lot of big numbers, but he showed me enough that if he's hovering around 20 to 25 to 1 range, I'd probably click his name.
Yeah. Jason, your comments on Xander. I feel like, you never know that he could absolutely bounce back, but I feel like that rib injury, I'm sure it's healed, but I feel like he's not fully back yet. Your thoughts on Patrick's, hey, if he drifts to 25 to 30, I'm going to hit it.
I spoke with him on Wednesday. He was in much better spirits than I thought. He was much more optimistic about his game than I thought he would be. I thought he was going to kind of take it slow and easy. We saw he made the cut on the number. He's playing some decent golf last I checked today. That said, I essentially gave him my hypothesis that, hey, July, August, September rolls around and everybody else is running on fumes and you're going to have plenty in the tank. And he kind of smiled. He's like, yeah, I hope so. I'll talk to you then. So he might be thinking the same thing, that this is more of a long-term type deal. I've also talked to some trainers who have worked with other professional golfers that have had the same acute tear of the intercostal muscle in the rib cage. And they've said, look, it's sort of like a wrist injury where one bad swing out of some thick rough and all of a sudden you're starting from square one. That's a lot of risk to take for a guy that, the rough is not going to be maybe as thick next week as we're seeing at Bay Hill. And if you can get through 4 rounds at Bay Hill, that makes me a little more optimistic moving forward for next week. But he's probably not quite there for me. But like Patrick said, you might not have a better opportunity to get a better number on Xander going into a tournament. So yeah. I don't mind firing on that.
That's for sure. Let's have our closing thoughts here with you, Mike. Some of the names, I know you gave out some outrights in terms of just guys you're looking at, not guys you've actually played quite yet on a Sunday, but any of the names that you heard us say that pique your interest in any way?
Yeah, I think a lot of the names definitely piqued the interest. Xander, look, I like Xander. I don't know if he's completely back yet. I guess we'll definitely find out there. The guy that we haven't talked about a lot that I kind of mentioned liking a little bit in the DFS show for this week, ultimately didn't get to play him, was Hideki. And I still don't think anyone's playing Hideki next week. Mm-hmm. I do like him a little bit here. I really like what I've seen from him today in round 4 when you're talking about, a position where he has no shot of really doing anything in this tournament. And he's gone out there and grinded pretty well, sitting 3 under on the round right now with 2 bogeys on the card. And frankly, bogeyed a hole that he shouldn't have bogeyed. So I honestly, I like what I'm seeing right now from Hideki, just kind of lurking there. And I think that, I know this is more betting question than DFS, but again, I don't think anyone's playing him. So I do like Hideki a little bit.
I've got one more and I want to get your guys' take on this. Can I interest anybody and he's playing fairly average this week? Can I interest you in Will Zalatoris on a second shot golf course?
So I watched his, as Patrick McDonald nods his head no. So I watched his front nine last week because I had a matchup. It wasn't an official play for me, but I had a matchup. It was Will Zalatoris over Matt Fitzpatrick. Actually, Matt Fitzpatrick looked pretty good, but I watched Zalatoris' front nine. This would be for round 3 of the API. Mm-hmm. Gosh, he actually was pretty good on the back nine, the nine that I didn't watch. But he looked really, I don't know what to say. He just didn't look confident in his game. He was playing very conservatively as well. I think, Jason, to your point, this type of course, I think maybe is a better play for him than Bay Hill. I don't know. I feel like he's still trying to figure out his game. But Jason, you're the one out there seeing him way more than I am.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that quite honestly, I didn't run into him, didn't speak with him this week, didn't see a whole lot from him in the few days that I was out there early in the week. So I'm just throwing him out there. He's probably going to be a decent number for a guy who tends to be a big game hunter, plays his best golf in the biggest golf tournaments on a course that, again, should fit his game. But I just don't know if the form is there. But again, as we all know, when the form isn't there, the number's going to be better. So you might want to take a chance.
I absolutely true. And by the way, Decky is going to be a bet, Mike, that I'm going to make as well. But down the board, Jason, I think I could be convinced on Will Zalatoris. It might take Monday and Tuesday, our DFS show and our betting show, but I could maybe be convinced if the number's long enough. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, no, again, I haven't seen, we're getting very early into this. I'll do a lot of my research and studying later tonight and tomorrow morning, but I haven't seen a number on Zalatoris yet. I don't know if you guys have one in front of you. It's at 50 to 1. It's a no-go for me at 75, 80 to 1. Yeah, maybe take a little chance.
I feel like
old
that's
number here, but 65 was the number that was.
I kind of figured it would be right in between.
Yeah, I feel like 65 is a great number, just in a vacuum on, somebody you think could potentially win, but I really thought it would be 75. Maybe we could shop that number around and see where it's at by tomorrow, because it absolutely could fall. I don't think he's going to take a ton of money relative to some of the other people that are in that range. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to circle back for less than 5 minutes on the API, but that is at least our initial setup of TPC Sawgrass of the players. Obviously a lot more on the 7:00 show on Monday, which is the DFS show, the betting show on Tuesday. That's also at 7:00. And of course, Wednesday morning at 10:30, it's me, Patrick McDonald, and Rick Gehman doing the live chat for the players. Again, that's 10:30. These are all on the Sportsline YouTube channel. Then of course is the Friday recap. And then this show Sundays at 1:00. All right. That'll be our players setup. Let's circle on the early wedge. Let's circle back real quick before we get out of here. Patrick, you've been watching the coverage as I see Bradley in the cart path, but it looks like he might have a go at it here. Jason Day has a par putt on 1. Michael Kim birdied his first hole. Your thoughts? Anything happened in the last 20 minutes to change any minds?
No, I'm just going to – I think Morikawa wins this. I did not bet on him. I'm rolling with my Henley ticket and – just hoping for the best. They put on a graphic of his worst final round scoring average by course, and Bay Hill is number 1 at 74.2. So excited to experience the day with all my Russell Sprouts out there, and let's shock the world.
Michael Kim is going to at least bogey the second. It looks like he's got a 6-footer, maybe a little less than 6 to bogey the second hole. Jason Day did make his par putt on 1. Pretty bad off the tee play by him on 1, and his approach play wasn't very good either, but he ended up saving par. Jason Sobel, anything transpire in the last 20 minutes while we were going over the players that makes you think, hey, maybe there's Sepp in the water on 2. That's news. Thank you, Hef Sterling. I didn't see that personally. Jason, any update from you?
Yeah, the update is Carl Phillips has birdied again. He has taken a 3-shot lead through 8 holes. Huge. He's about to go to the par 5 9th. And if Carl wins, look, yeah, we care about the API, but I'll take the L on the API if we can get Puerto Rico in the house.
Well, I mean, I'll say this, and I said it on one of the shows we did. Again, we do 5 a week. I said it on one of the shows that from an outright betting opportunity, and I was kind of proven to be wrong here with the API because Scotty and Rory didn't end up aren't going to win this tournament. But I think these alternate events offer such better value when it comes to the outrights because there's so many no names. And honestly, a lot of my success, anybody that follows me on Twitter or follows me on some of these shows, I would say almost half of my success, especially last summer, it was 3 tournaments in a row where I was hitting first round leaders and outrights at the alternate events, at some of these fall swing events that have no name guys in them. you got to look at those. So hopefully Carl Phillips, again, if you watch this 7 o'clock betting show on Tuesday, you saw not only did I have it, Jason had it as well. And these were in the anywhere between the 60 and 75 to 1 on Carl Phillips, who's clearly a talent. Let's see if he can close. Mike McClure, anything you're seeing before we get out of here that's worth note?
It looks like I'm playing for Rory McIlroy right now. Just awful shot on the second on this. Yeah, it's just an awful number 5 here. Rory just totally duffed it. Yeah, nothing else to talk about really. Rory is making a mess of this round and with just scoring par on holes that he should be birdieing. So no, nothing more. I'm just going to watch Morikawa, and I think Morikawa does get this done though.
All right. By the way, if you guys aren't familiar with the one and done, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, I think it's the one and done courtesy of Splash Sports that's free to everybody. I think I'm certain the link will be in the YouTube description, in the podcast description. You're going to want to get in on this. The one and done is finally live. Link to sign up is in the bio. The deadline for entry is the beginning of the Players Championship. Okay, so you have 4 days to get into this free contest, and there's certainly some payouts in this. I know Rick had a big tweet that got a lot of action. I retweeted it as well, and we'll tweet it again as the week starts. But you got to be 18 or older, of course. No purchase necessary. There are some official rules, but again, if you are, I believe 18 or over, you can basically get into this Splash Sports contest. And again, I think a lot of people are getting involved. It's $1,000 to first, and it's free to enter. That's all you need to know. Mike McClure, as you're nodding your head, what happened before we get out of here?
Just incredible shot from Rory to recover, still give himself a decent look at a par. But yeah, that's it. Just watching Rory do Rory things.
All right, we have Morikawa in the fairway. Ooh, not a great approach.
Shot. Live play-by-play. Let's do it.
Not a great approach from Colin Morikawa. He's either in the deep rough or he's in the bunker. I couldn't tell, but he's going to have to get up and down. See, Patrick, it's what you said. Colin closing, not a thing.
No, it's going to be an up and down day for the top leaderboard.
I mean, guys, we've got Colin hasn't closed in a while. Henley doesn't close. Connors doesn't close. Jason Day has closed once in the last, 8 years?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to win this thing.
Yeah. Keegan? Who knows? This is going to be fun. But let's go Carl Phillips. And another shout out to Patrick McDonald, because hopefully we'll hit Carl Phillips, Jason, 70, 75 to 1. But Patrick McDonald has already hit. He already hit Sergio at 25 to 1. He already hit Joe Highsmith last week at 110 to 1. The early wedge is really, what a great start. And by the way, I can't speak everybody else's picks because I haven't gone over them. But my picks for this week and last week, when it comes to matchups and top 20s, top 30s, those are all looking really, really good. Both my top 30 bets, by the way, were Keegan Bradley and Michael Kim. Looking pretty good. My matchup was Lowry over Sung J M. It looks like the only thing I'm going to lose is the plus 360 on Nick Taylor as top Canadian. And that's mainly because Corey Connors just has gone berserk. But Nick Taylor having a nice round 4, having a pretty good tournament overall. So the early wedge has been really hot to start out. And we want all of you along for the ride. And bring your friends, tell your friends, retweet our show, get in the chat, hit the like button, do all those things to support the show because it obviously certainly helps. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap for the early wedge. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock on the DFS show. We'll do a little players preview there as well. But on behalf of Josh, the hardest working producer that golf has to offer, he's on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, making this show look great. We got Mike McClure, we got Jason Sobel, we got Patrick McDonald, and myself, Sia Nejad. It's been a great show. It's going to be a great finish. So go whoever you got your outright ticket on, but particularly go Carl Phillips in Puerto Rico. Let's do it. This is the early wedge. We'll see you tomorrow.